Hello, everyone, and happy Saturday to you. John Hendricks here for Saints News Network, coming at you with another recap of Saints training camp. Day 9. We're moving along. We're about to get into double digits. It was all fun. A lot of tempers flared up today. A lot of good action to cover. Not all good. We'll get into it very shortly. But first, we want to obviously give a major shout out to Justin Burgess of Ben Pro for sponsoring today's show. Again, if you have a business that's in the greater New Orleans region, you know this. Give them a call, whether it's employee benefits or any type of insurance needs. Give them a call, 504-888-8038. That's Justin Burgess over at BenPro. Tell them John Hendricks sent you. All right, so action. Let's start with the bad. So the first part of it is that Eno Benjamin ruptured his Achilles. This happened in kind of just drills, working with the running backs and the quarterbacks inside session. Just came up, ruptured his Achilles. He had to take a cart ride off. That's tough to see when it's not a non-contact injury. It's totally unfortunate. I mean, Benjamin, especially with the Kamara stuff, probably could have maybe been the RB3 with Kamara being out. But now that's probably going to fall on Kirk Merritt, or maybe they do something else there. There could be a couple of options that present itself. So that's not something that you want to see. As far as attendance goes, look, still no Andres Pete. Still no Calvin Throckmorton. Throckmorton's dealing with an elbow injury. Did get James Hurst back today. And then obviously a few guys that had veteran rest days as well. So, but what the concern comes in is mainly about some of the guys. So, who wasn't there? Brian Brisset wasn't there. Pete. And then obviously, we mentioned about Throckmorton as well. And then Cesar Ruiz. So Ruiz was a rest day. Brian Brisset is dealing with a calf injury. Considered to be minor, but he was held out of practice today, as well as Demario Davis. We saw him during stretch, but then Dennis Allen saying after practice that he went for imaging on it, and it doesn't believe it's to be anything serious. Should be minor. Injuries starting to kind of pile up. So in addition to that, look, Traquan Smith, Rashid Shaheed, both left practice due to a groin issue. Or groin injury, and the concern for Shaheed is he already had dealt with this in minicamp, right? He had a groin injury in minicamp. Now it's back. Those are a pesky injury, and they're probably going to hold him out a little bit. We'll see how that kind of plays out. Concerns obviously for Demario. Hopefully that's not anything lingering, but the offensive line is getting very depleted. And then at one point during practice today, Kendre Miller got hit. I mean, this is well after the play. I mean, he's running downfield. The play's over. Somebody hits him. I'm not going to speculate and say who it was. Somebody hits him. He's down on the field. At first, we thought it was a concussion or anything, but apparently it's related to the jaw. Dennis Allen saying it was a jaw injury, possibly something related to TMJ, something to obviously pay attention to. So injuries suck. They're not a good part of the game, and for the Saints team, they've dealt with a good bit already. And so now it's one of those things we're going to have to see what this team looks like when they take on the Chiefs for their first preseason game. But, not an ideal day in terms of injuries and guys who left and guys who weren't there. Pete's dealing with a strained quad. Calvin Throckmorton has an elbow injury. We don't know the extent of that. But, we'll try to get some updates for that. But as far as other things that happened, look, tempers kind of flared up a little bit today. You had a couple of instances. Team worked on one-on-ones. You had indoor red zone drills and 7-on-7, but and then you had obviously some team drills, but a couple spats happened. You not spat between these two, but Isaac Yiadom and Chris Olave jawing at each other a little bit after reps and such. That kind of trickled over a little bit. You got Kiki Kute and Lynn Bowden Jr. going at it after. I'm sorry, Kiki Kute and Lonnie Johnson Jr. going at it after a little bit after. A rep. Cooler's heads prevailed there. And then obviously the biggest one was Malcolm Roach and Tommy Kramer. Kramer knocked his helmet off in a pass rush or just rushing and getting after it. Roach took exception to it, did one of those open hand slaps, cooled off after that. But, tempers flare. It's training camp. Pads were on today and such. I mean, it's just one of those environments, right? And so let's talk about the good. Talk about the really good. Derek Carr did not have a great day yesterday. It was a little bit strugglesome, missed some throws and all that. But again, we've talked about it. Carr's talked about it. There are going to be some times where in practice you just try different things, all this other stuff. But today he looked excellent inside in the red zone. He went 6 for 6. He hit 4 touchdowns in the process. So again, I charted him. It's all on saints.media, si.com/NFL/Saints. Very lengthy review today. Again, most of these are over 2,000 words. Like I said, grab a cup of coffee, read up. I put it as detailed as possible, just so you feel like you're not missing out on anything. So, but he hit touchdowns, an angle route to Alvin Kamara working against Zach Bond. He also had another one to Chris Olave up the seam, Foster Moreau up the seam. Those are a 2-1. And I love Foster's because he ended up spiking the ball, or not spiking, but he dunked the ball while the defense is right there on the back wall. Really interesting. And then the other one was to Keith Kirkwood. So pretty cool. I mean, you definitely want to see those types of things. I think that Carr, one of the big knocks on him is the red zone execution. And I get it. It's 7-on-7. You can look at it the other side and say, well, the defense wasn't good, all this other stuff. But look, if Carr's doing bad, it's just like a catch-22. If Carr's doing bad, you're saying defense is good or Carr stinks. I mean, so just pick your poison. I take away that Carr had a much better day than he did the day before, and he did extremely well in the red zone. Take that for what it is from a guy who's covered this team over 10 years. It's practice. I get it. But he did a great job. He also came back. He did some really good things in one-on-one. A couple plays to highlight there for you. First one, Alontae Taylor working against Chris Olave. Had a nice little pick in the end zone because they were working kind of out of this 15-yard, 20-yard range in red zone, a lot of fade routes and stuff. Alontae got the better of Chris Olave in one of the first plays, but Olave came back. He made it an outstanding. It's a fade route to the right sideline, end zone, and he makes a one-handed grab near the corner. It was just absolutely beautiful on Alontae. So it was really cool to see that. Look, I think when you look at it, again, a lot of success in one-on-ones, team drills, a little bit different. Some of them produced some good things. I think the team had some good pass rush going. Cam Jordan, Peyton Turner, all the guys that we normally talk about, Tano passing y'all. He's a guy that I think people are sleeping on a little bit. And I said this long time ago that even with things changing in this pass rush, that I believe he has more of an opportunity to take some reps and some snaps for this defense. He looked good today. And, a lot of players really stood out. So I think A.T. Perry had one of his best practices of training camp. He's playing with a lot more confidence. He caught a lot of passes. There's one route where I don't know what happened, but there was nobody around him within 15 yards. I mean, he was just wide open down the sideline. I mean, it's about as easy as you can get, but he made some really good catches. He's a guy that kind of struggled. He was kind of off and on, and we've talked about him, of course, but, he really picked it up today. I think he looked exceptional. Lucas Kroll was another one that stood out in addition to him and Carr. Kroll, man, he had, I think, the play of the day. It was with Jake Haener. I think, let me make sure I get that right because 3 pages of notes today, so I want to make sure I've got. Yep, Haener was the quarterback. Last team drills series for him because they went Carr, Winston, then Haener, and then they ran 2 plays apiece. So Carr had 2, Winston had 2, and then Haener had 2. But it was back-to-back touchdowns for Lucas Kroll. The first one is a back shoulder hookup because they were working again in red zone. Man, he made a one-handed grab right in the left side, working against JT Gray. Just a beautiful catch, beautiful hookup. We talked about Haener, how good he's looked. And then on the next play, Kroll gets another touchdown off of a rollout. So, look, he had a really good day. And look, I think he needs that. It's tough because this is a guy that, coming into this year, especially pre-53-man roster projections, all that stuff, Kroll was a guy that I had as tight end for because I think it's really fluid. I think it can change all over the place. But, Jimmy Graham comes in. Graham might take that spot. And, of course, I say that because Taysom Hill, he was working with the tight end group again today. He's also playing quarterback. That remains to be seen how they ultimately divvy that up and what that looks like. But, Kroll's a guy. I think this is a big step for him coming in this year and obviously had an opportunity with Nick Vannett not being here, Adam Troutman getting traded away. They bring in Foster Moreau, Jawan Johnson. Kroll's one of those guys that, look, he needs to keep this going and put it on in the preseason because, again, right now, guys that flash in practice like that, it's tough to say, here's your roster spot because I think they have distinct priority on the practice squad. But of course, we'll see how that kind of plays out. I think he needs to have a really good preseason, coming up. And obviously, we're just about a week away from the Chiefs game. So we'll kind of keep an eye on Kroll, but he did have a good day. Same thing with A.T. Perry. Look, receivers, again, I've talked about it, 4, 5, and 6, hasn't had the greatest. I mean, I think it's been Traquan mostly and then Keith Kirkwood, but hadn't seen too much from James Washington. I think Brian Edwards is not having a good camp at all. A.T. Perry's really coming along. You got Lynn Bowden Jr., Kiki Kute, and Shaq Davis. I mean, this is just one of those things where I think they could find these answers out really quickly. But, look, I think Kroll's in that mold, just saying A.T. Perry. It's going to be hard. I don't want to say he's a priority practice squad guy. He just needs to keep putting things together and keep working, but he could also make this roster cut really interesting. Blake Grupe ended up kicking today. He went 6 of 7. There was a couple of kicks that looked a little bit iffy, but they were right on the inside of uprights, and I got a straight on shot of it. Again, I trust my eyes to see it. He did miss one. It bounced off the left upright. It was a long field goal attempt, but he was 6 of 7. Again, we still have a legitimate special teams battle. Lou Headley looked really good today with some of his punts. Had one that was just not that great, but most of the other ones look good. I'm really excited to see how this goes in preseason. And I think that's the biggest takeaway, because we have a few more days. We have tomorrow, Sunday, and then obviously Monday. Everything's off Tuesday, and then they'll be off Saturday. So we'll only get a few more practices before their first preseason game. So there's just a lot to take in. And I think that when you look at it, it's going to just be fun to watch football again. And so I'm pretty excited. I know you're excited about it. We're excited about it at Saints News Network. So be sure to check all of our information out. Look, I will also say a couple other things. Jordan Howden got some work with the first team today, working alongside of Tyrann Mathieu. Some of those guys look like they had veteran rest days. Marcus May was one of them. So those things are going to happen, and I think they like Howden. I pointed out in my recap that he's kind of that extra defensive back, when they run a 3-man rush, and he's their extra guy when they have, Paulson and Lante and Bradley Roby out there, and they have Tyrann and obviously Marcus May, that Howden's that other guy. So really interested to see if he keeps things going. I think he's got a really good chance and good outlook right now. I'd also give another thing to somebody to watch is Landon Young. He's playing left guard right now. And just one of those things where I asked him today that, he said this is the first time he's played guard. And just because of injuries that are happening, the team is trying to get him a little bit more cross-trained, if you will. And so it's been good, and they're giving him more work there. But he's a guy that, we talk about this offensive line. I think it's a legitimate concern because you've already seen the injuries. This team is not going to make it a full 17 games plus the playoffs with their full offensive line intact. It's just not going to happen. It's very uncommon these days. But the Saints just don't have great luck there either. But, look, Landon Young's a guy that I think we kind of maybe sleep on, overlook, but he's been learning a lot from Jari Evans as well. So, look, again, another really good practice. Just looking over my notes, seeing if there's anything else to hit on. I mean, there's tons of things to talk about. So if you haven't gone on si.com/NFL/Saints or saints.media, I don't know what you're doing, because I've got everything that you need to know about practice for day 9 on there in great detail to make you feel like you're there, right? And we got 10 tomorrow, 11 on Monday, and then we're going to be off on Tuesday. And so we're getting close. I'm happy. I'm excited. Again, thank you to Justin Burgess of Ben Pro for producing today's show. That's going to do it for us today. We're going to talk about a little bit more here, and I do have some ideas for doing some live streams. Got a lot of cool things working right now, but again, thank you so much for your support. Stay tuned to us. Lots more to come. I'm John Hendricks for Saints News Network, signing out.